Welcome to another week of the Royal Family Podcast. My name is Tyler. This is my co-host.
Austin, I'm glad to be here for a second time. Glad you haven't thrown me out after the first episode.
Yeah, we are recording this like 30 minutes after the Royals just lost on Sunday to the Padres, 3-2. So that stings a little bit. I'll be honest, I probably would have put up a better, more enthusiastic performance today if we had won. That kind of took the life out of me, but it happens.
Yeah, but, we're not going to dwell on that, especially the bullpen decision that was made during today's game, but we're going to focus on the positives.
Decisions
okay,
with an
I'm
S.
Sorry. Decisions.
With an S.
Multiple decisions that were made.
Yeah, anyways, so that's pretty fresh, but you do anything fun this past week?
Honestly, not really. Just watching a lot of sports. Club World Cup. I know that's soccer, a little bit off topic, but that's kind of kicked off. Brazilian soccer is alive and well. If you don't know what I mean, look into it. Brazilian teams are absolutely outperforming expectations at the Club World Cup, which it's been kind of awesome to see. But yeah, other than that, just trying to keep up as best I can with the Royals.
Yeah, we also have the NBA Finals are about to start in about 14 minutes.
Yeah.
Game 7.
Who you got in that game?
Pretty crazy. Who cares? Am I right? Let's get into some baseball. Yeah, so this week, much better than the previous week, for sure. As I said, we do these episodes bi-weekly, so we didn't cover last week, and I'm kind of happy that we didn't, because that was frustrating.
It was atrocious.
Yeah, got swept by the good old A's.
The A's who don't even have a city yet, or are in between cities.
Yeah, the good old Sacramento, Las Vegas, Oakland A's. Got swept by them. They're pretty bad this year. They do have some things improving, and they do have the best shortstop in the league at the moment. Sorry to our fans, but just statistically, I mean. And they also happen to... Who cares? They're doing a little better, but it was a bad loss. We also got swept by the Yankees, which is a little more expected, but still hurt.
Yeah, especially at home. It did sting a little bit.
Regardless, I only brought that up to say it was a bad week, but we're reflecting on this past week, which was much better, and I thought it would be even better than it ended up being, but can't be too spoiled as a Royals fan.
Never.
We swept the Rangers. It looked like the energy was back, the bats were back. Bobby Witt Jr. called a player-only meeting after Saturday's loss to the A's. And besides that game the very next day, we've been playing a lot better since it. I don't know. I kind of feel like our energy comes in spurts, and it's like, oh, Jack Caglione is up. This is like supposed to be one of the better baseball players around today. Like, everybody's super hype, and the bats are electric, and everybody's playing together, and the energy's there.
Yeah.
And then it slowly fades away. And then we do get swept by the A's after almost getting swept by the White Sox. And we realized, like, the energy's not there. We're just kind of like going through the motions, I guess. And so we call a player-only meeting, and then the energy is up again for 3 days in a row, 4 days in a row even.
Yeah.
And then Not even that we played like terrible today, but it seems like we go on these like momentum trips of like so much momentum, and then it slowly trails off, and then we realize we're in a really bad position, and so we try to motivate ourselves again, and then we fall off again. I think it honestly starts with the head coach, who really doesn't seem to be cultivating any type of culture there at all, really. He just seems to be the guy who kind of sticks to himself, looks over the analytics, lives and dies by the analytics, as we've talked about recently. What those are, we don't really know. They don't really make any sense.
I agree with you. I feel like our bats are not reliable at all. We just need these dopamine hits that trail off after a while. The players only meeting, that helped for a little bit. When we went to Dallas or Arlington to play the Rangers, they were able to bring their families with them on that road trip. They had that dopamine hit. The bats were seemingly back. And now we're maybe a little bit better than where we were a week or two ago, but still trailing off from that series against the Rangers once again.
It looks like Lugo's back. He had a great outing against the Rangers. He had an even better outing, you could argue, today against the Padres. And I don't want to talk about it too much because we spent so much of last podcast talking about Q's decision making and the lack thereof and the bad ones and whatnot. But
I think he's got the
I will
message.
say,
Well,
I will say we are.
Message.
Oh, he's gonna get the message, all right. I will say he's Lugo is 5 starts removed from his injury. The last 3 starts looks like the rust is completely gone. It's actually the first time this whole season he's looked like Lugo from last season, honestly. And today he gave up 1 hit at the beginning of the game and 1 hit in the 7th inning. Besides that, complete perfect game. And he hit 90 pitches, and Q decided that was it for him. Pulled him, put in Zerpa. Zerpa had some trouble. Put in Urseg. Urseg had some trouble. And, we gave up the lead. They tied it up. Then in the most pivotal point of the game where you really need someone with precision, we bring in John Schreiber. And it wasn't his earned run, it was Lynch's, but it immediately the Padres won. And I just want to put it on the record, even though we're not going to go super into it this week, Q still is making terrible decisions. And
I will say too. I'm sorry to cut you off. I will say too, just for context and to play devil's advocate a little bit, Schreiber did his job against the Rangers. Now, does that absolve him of everything that he's done this season so far? No, not necessarily. But you could argue that in his 2 appearances against the Rangers, he did a solid job.
Well, yeah.
I'll just leave it at that.
Which actually brings me to a bigger point that I have about Q's decisions. It is, I haven't run the numbers on this, but it is almost abundantly clear when I watch this team that Zerpa and Schreiber can be very, very, very good. But so often Q brings them in as the guys who inherit other people's base runners, or they come in the most pivotal, inheriting other people's base runners in the most pivotal situations in the game, and they do not rise up to the moment. Zerpa was good pretty much all year last year, sucked in the playoffs. Schreiber has sucked during every big moment this year, pretty much, one way or another. Q tries to make those guys, like, their literal role is to come in when there's, like, a bad situation and we're in trouble in a close game. but that's the exact moments they should never be in, because they usually pitch pretty well when they come in. They're the first pitcher to start the inning. It's not like a dire situation, and they usually get a 1-2-3 and get out of there. But for those high pressure situations, I think we need someone more like Cruz. I would say Jonathan Bullen, but we optioned him to Omaha for Sam Long. The Sam Long that has an 11.25 ERA in the majors this season and a 9.75 ERA in the minors. What? What is going on there? And yes, he was good last year. Well, actually, he was decent last year, but even last year, his numbers were worse than Boland's are right now. So, I don't know what that is. I have no idea. Hopefully he talks about it at some point, but that's crazy. I don't know. Taylor Clark is in our bullpen. He's blown up the last 4 times he's pitched. Zerpa, a lot of people hate that he's in there. He's been a lot better lately, but he has a very bad ERA. John Schreiber is terrible. End of story. I don't know what's going on.
You hold no punches, but I will say I think the question is anyone going to question Q on it as far as his decision making and things like that?
Is anybody going to...
I know you've kind of talked about the KC media and how they don't really challenge him very often, but I wonder, with some of these decisions along with, which I know he doesn't control entirely who gets sent up or sent down, but I still feel like he has a say in that. If you're the day-to-day manager, I feel like combination of Bolin being sent down as well as the bullpen decisions, I feel like he's going to get questioned about that at some point. He has to. He absolutely has to. And those are fair questions.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's a little crazy. I don't know what's going on there. Salvi seems like he more or less is back as well. He's hit 5 home runs so far in June already. He's a bit of an RBI machine. Getting his average right up about 240. Nothing great, but he was at 216 a little bit ago. Super good to see him back up there. He looked like he had a game-winning home run today for a bit. Obviously, we couldn't close out the game. But he is improving, and I like to see that. Caglione got his first home run against the Rangers, and then he got his second home run in the same game against the Rangers.
Absolutely beautiful. When you look at that first home run, that was 95-mile-an-hour fastball up high, and he still was able to take it upstairs and still launch it into the outer field. It was super impressive at the outer field. It was, what would you call it? Into the stands.
The outfield.
But then if I say in the outfield, then it's within play. But into the stands, he was able to send it out, and for that first home run. And I thought that was just a glimpse of what people have been hyping him up as being a great power hitter, which I think was really great to see there against the Rangers. And I think another thing, we talk about how great of a hitter he is. I know he's kind of had some growing pains when it comes to some of his outfield play. He was able to steal a home run, which was pretty impressive, given some of his struggles since he's been brought up in the outfield. I think with time, he'll continue to improve and learn that position and get better.
Speaking of right field and corner outfield in general, it did come up recently that the Royals are shopping for corner outfielders. According to Jim Bowden, or Bowden, however you pronounce it, from The Athletic, the Royals are shopping for corner outfield help. There's a few names that I've seen come up. The one that intrigues me the most is Heriberto Hernandez. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but he's pretty new, so not a lot of pronunciations out there in the first place. He was called up recently for the Marlins and only has about 45 at-bats, but in those 45 at-bats, he's hitting .333 with a .375 on-base percentage, and he's supposed to be a super solid left fielder. So that's very intriguing to me because it seems like the Marlins are the most likely team that will be shopping their outfielders. So I'd really like us to look into that guy. I love scouting younger talent that seems like they have like a gigantic or like a very, very, very high, tall roof. That's kind of my thing. That's why I love Michael Garcia so much. That's why I a lot of times have still believed in MJ Melendez, and I still kind of do, although I might have been wrong about that one. But I'd really like to see us go out and get this kid. Do I think it's likely? Not really. I think it's more likely we go for someone a little more veteran and a little more high power. But there's not a lot of options out there. Another person that is possible to get is Cedric Mullins for the Orioles, but I personally think that'd be a pretty bad idea. He's hitting like .219, only 12 home runs. Not that 12 home runs is nothing, but like I think a lot of people have argued the reason to get him would be for power, and he's not even having that great of a season with that. He'd be a good fielder, but like I don't know about all that. So I'd like to see us get this Heriberto Hernandez kid. I think it'd be really great. It's looking like we would mainly be giving up a catcher or two. I recently figured out that we have like some of the best catching prospects in the minors, which is crazy to think about since we've been our current two catchers are so good already. But I would have no problem with giving them up. So when I saw that we didn't necessarily have to give up anybody on the actual team, that made me pretty happy. But yeah, to round out talking about this past week, let's get into the player/stat of the week. So the player of the week this week is going to be Michael Garcia. And like I said, guys, we started recording this about 30 minutes after the Royals Sunday game against the Padres. So most of these statistics are going to be the stats as they were before that game, because I didn't really have time to change all of them, and there's a lot. But just keeping that in mind. In the last 7 games, Michael has hit .370 with a .370 on base percentage, and he's really he's been consistent all season, but he's starting to get to that point where he will just have like 3 or 4 multi-hit games a week, and it's been really fun to watch. And we are going to give you the case for Michael Garcia to lead off, bat in the number 1 spot. And I have been saying this all year, literally. Would you say that's correct, Austin?
You have. Yep.
Yes. I've been saying this literally all year, but I have not gone into the deep research that it takes to find all of the statistics I need to make my point thoroughly, to convince everybody who might not already be convinced, because I know there's people out there who I mean, there's not a bunch of people who wouldn't like Michael at the leadoff spot, but there's a lot of people who probably don't care or don't realize that we're letting our team die because of the lineup. But let me break it down for everybody, if I may. So, let me tell you the things that are important to me for the leadoff hitter on my team. Michael Garcia has 39 plate appearances in the leadoff spot so far this year. This is because India has had like minor injuries for like a few games at a time, and sometimes India is just resting, just has a rest day. Whatever it is, whenever India is out of the lineup, Michael Garcia leads off the lineup. So you can tell right there that Q already has some trust in Michael, or some amount of logic that tells him that Michael is at least the second best leadoff person on this team. And just because I didn't clearly state it before all this, the current leadoff person is Jonathan India, who we traded for in the offseason, and who was a pretty good leadoff hitter for the Cincinnati Reds. Now, in those 39 plate appearances that Michael has led off, he is hitting .412 with a .432 on base percentage, a .529 slugging percentage, and a .961 OPS. Michael also has 184 plate appearances with the bases empty this year. The bases empty being significant because the bases will always be empty when you lead off a game or when you lead off an inning. With the bases empty, he is hitting .347 with a .397 on base percentage, a .541 slugging, and a .948 OPS. He's currently in the 3 spot right now. In the 3 spot, you want somebody who can hit with runners in scoring position. You want somebody who can move any runners that got on in front of him, who can hit in any runners that got on in front of him. Michael has 90 plate appearances with a runner either only on first, a runner only on second, or a runner on first and second. All of those scenarios combined, he has 90 plate appearances. In those 90 plate appearances, he is hitting .211. It's hard with how good Michael is hitting this year to find any split where he's only hitting something like .211, something that bad. But that's something when you're the 3 hitter, you're going to be put in that spot a lot with the runner on first, or runners on first and second, or a runner only on second. You're going to be in those spots so often, and he's hitting .211 in that position. Now, he is hitting something like .296 with runners in scoring position, so by no means is it a crazy thing to argue that he's good for the 3 spot, but it is not. There's way more numbers that just show that it is not the best place for him. Now, let's compare Michael to Jonathan India. These statistics right here that I'm going to compare first are the ones that I feel show that Michael would be a better leadoff hitter than Jonathan India. The ones I feel. So let's compare their batting average. Michael has a .315 batting average, first on the Royals. Jonathan India has a .242 batting average, which is 7th. Michael has a .374 on base percentage. India, and this is honestly India's best stat, that and his walk percentage, for to make the case for him still being the leadoff guy. But India has a .319 on base percentage, 4th on the team. Stolen bases. To me at least, when you have a leadoff hitter, you want somebody who can get on. That's the obvious part. But then if you have somebody that's on, you're going to want somebody who is good at stealing bases. So they can, let's say they get on with a single, they steal second base, so that way a single can score them, another single. Especially with Bobby Witt Jr. up there, who can hit singles for days. You want somebody who can get on second, even if they only hit a single. Michael has 17 stolen bases. That is second on the team. Jonathan India has 0. I think he's attempted like 2 or 3 or 4, but he has 0. 0 stolen bases from your leadoff hitter is insane to me. Insane. I don't know. But anyways, obviously Michael beats him in that category. Now, batting average with runners in scoring position, and this actually blew my mind when I saw it. India takes it. Michael has a 297 batting average with runners in scoring position, which is good, but it's third on the team. And India has a 304 batting average with runners in scoring position, which is second on the team. He hits really good with runners in scoring position. Austin, do you have any guesses for who's our best batter with runners in scoring position?
I would hope it's Bobby. I know he's struggled more this year. Last year he was on a tear with runners in scoring position. But my guess would probably be Bobby, if I had to guess, or Vinny.
Neither. Vinny, although he's slowly getting it back up. That's what she said.
Interesting use of words there.
Has a terrible average with runners in scoring position. But
okay.
No, neither of those are correct. Would you like to keep guessing?
Salvi.
Nope.
Or Isbell. Or
yep.
Oh, it is Isbell. Nice.
Kyle Isbell.
Which
307.
Shout out to Isbell. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, 307 with runners in scoring position. So anyways, that kind of shocked me when I saw that India was that good with runners in scoring position. And then let's look at this next little stat, batting average with bases empty, which as we talked about before, that is going to be the most common situation for a leadoff hitter. Michael with a 347 batting average, 397 on base percentage. Jonathan India just 231. Our leadoff hitter is hitting 231 with the bases empty and 304 with runners in scoring position. Our leadoff hitter. I almost said it in Spanish, but I don't know the Spanish for it. But I think it would have been really funny. But unfortunately, we don't have that kind of... We do have that kind of technology, but I'm not going to use it. I will say India has a 300 on base percentage with bases empty because he walks a lot, and that is a decent on base percentage, but still way worse than Michael, and his average is deplorable with bases empty. Anyways, those are the things I think are important when it comes to your leadoff hitter. But let me also share some numbers. Let's look at all of the other things managers think is important for leadoff hitters that I found based on research, not just what I want. So we have walk percentage. Jonathan India does edge out Michael on this one. 9.4% walk percentage to Michael's 8.5%. So that's the score for India. I believe that's the first category. The first category that he beats Michael out in. Strikeout percentage. Michael barely beats him. 14% strikeout percentage versus India's 14.1%. Base running stats. I don't want to just omit. I don't want to just omit information just because it doesn't suit me. And base running stats, all of them that I looked at were not good for Jonathan and India, but they just weren't good for either of them. Garcia edges him out on most of them, but they both have really, really, really bad base running stats. So I figured I'd mention it because it is points against Michael, but not like for anybody necessarily, besides Bobby, which, well, I'll get to that in a second. But they have very bad base running stats. I will say a lot of it has to do with the 5 times Michael got caught stealing in April. Just an insane amount of times. He's been much better since then, but he has got caught stealing 8 times, and it leads the league, and 5 of them were in April. So his numbers will slowly start to go back up, I feel. But other things that managers think are important in a leadoff hitter, we have average against fastballs. That goes to Michael with 274 versus India's 228. We have first inning average / on base percentage. I feel like it should be self-explanatory why that's important in a leadoff hitter, so I won't go into it. Michael in the first inning is hitting 286 with a 306 on base percentage, which actually I will say I don't know that this stat necessarily helps Michael a lot, because it's not like every time he hits in the first inning he's been leading off per se. So we can put an can you say that word, please?
Asterisk.
Yeah, we can put a star by that.
A little star.
But the person who has been leading off the entire year, who has only been leading off every single first inning he's played, surely has good numbers in the first inning. Surely has a good split. Austin, can you read the average and on-base percentage of Jonathan India in the first inning?
So average, a whopping 159, and the on-base percentage is a whopping 221. I don't know everything about baseball, but I know that is not very good. Are you still there?
There is no doubt that I am not an expert when it comes to baseball. I think I'm pretty knowledgeable compared to the average baseball fan, but obviously I'm not knowledgeable compared to the average scout, manager, person who's been in the league forever, who knows an abundance of information compared to me. But what the fuck, man? 159 and 221 in the first inning from a leadoff guy? When I see a 241 average overall from a leadoff guy, I'm like, well, that's not very good, but he must have all these like other stats that suggest he actually is the guy. Jonathan India just doesn't. His on-base percentage is pretty good, but it's like pretty good for a guy who sucks at hitting this year. So specifically this first inning average is just like, what are we doing? Q has had to sit there for 78 games. Well, 78 games, give a few for all the games that he's rested. In a row. 78 first innings in a row. Looking at Jonathan India go up there and do nothing. At least do nothing when he makes contact with the ball. It's usually a fly out, to be fair. What is going on with that? Anyways, next stat. Squared up percentage. Michael, 36.1%, actually 8th best in the entire MLB, any position. India, 29.7%. Whiff percent, Michael, 17.1, India, 22, Michael on top. And then the last thing that I found that is good for a leadoff hitter is consistency. And if we're going to be honest with ourselves, Michael, pretty much consistent the entire year. Jonathan India goes on like a 2-week slump, gets his average down to 218, and then he'll have like 3 games in a row where he goes 3 for 4, is the best hitter in the entire universe, and that gets his average back up to like 240. Then he coasts for about a week, and then he rinses and repeats. He's not consistent. The only thing he is consistent at is being inconsistent. So please, 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 Matthew Quatraro, if you're watching this, please consider putting Michael in the leadoff spot. It's all I want. It's all a young boy could ask for. Please?